Okay, so Kate Slee, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was a very, very shy hello from you.
I've changed, Will. I've changed.
So how long have you and I know each other? Over 10 years now, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. So we obviously go back to Les Mills days and being on the trainer team, presenting and that sort of stuff. The
Yeah.
reason I wanted to get you on the podcast today is to talk about two big things that have gone on in your life that I think are two quite big things that go on in the life of a lot of group fitness instructors. And that have massive impact on kind of the way you live your daily life and also the way that your career goes. And those two things are one, having your first child, having your first baby, and two,
Yeah.
opening your own business. So going from group fitness instructor to business owner where you're actually running a business. And the
Yeah.
challenging thing that you've done is in classic Kate form, you chose, well, didn't choose, you had it chosen for you that you would do both of these things in the
Yeah.
middle of a global pandemic.
Yes. I mean, why not? If you're going to do it, let's just do it the hardest way, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Go all in, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you just give us a sort of brief timeline of the last year of your life?
Okay. So we were due to launch our gym in Bristol in around November, December last year. So way before COVID sort of took hold. We had building work delays, so we didn't get to open until, well, much later. But so we were due to open the day the UK went into lockdown, the first lockdown.
That was I remember that now. Your
Yeah.
opening day was literally the first day of UK lockdown.
Yeah, so Mark had put about 100 hours in that week. He'd literally just put the last set of dumbbells
Right,
in. They've
Mark is
been
your
paint.
partner that
Mark's my other half,
you
yeah.
own the facility together, yeah.
Yeah, he'd been doing like work. He'd been in at 6 a.m., working till 3 a.m. the next day, come home for a shower, a quick sleep, go back. He'd been doing that all week to get ready. And he'd put like the last set of dumbbells in at 4:45. And then Boris came on at 5 p.m. to shut the gyms down at 5.
Oh
So we
no.
were like open for about 15 minutes. And we were like,
Did you actually open?
no, so we had our launch party booked for the next day. So
Oh
we had
my.
members wanting to come down and have a look, and we were like, well,
Yeah.
you better get down here real quick then, because at 5 o'clock we're shutting.
Oh my God. I remember that on social media and just thinking,
Yeah.
ouch. So how long had the gym been and how long had you been planning the gym sort of from right back to when you first decided you wanted to do it through to that fateful day?
Or like 18 months probably.
Hmm.
The building work took a lot longer. I mean, everyone always says, oh, it'll take longer than you think, but wow, it really does. There's so many factors that come into play in terms of kit being delivered or that wall needs to be. So for example, our gym is on a floating harbour in Bristol.
Hmm.
So we had to get the building work so that they took chunks of wall out so that we could put equipment in so it wasn't too heavy for the harbour. So we had huge, like, so basically, so the gym doesn't fall in the water.
Right.
Yeah, so we had loads of things that I never even thought would be an issue. I was like, oh, well, we'll just put kit in that space. That would be good.
Mm.
But yeah, it took over 18 months from start to finish.
So let's wind it back a little bit, just for the benefit of people that haven't met you before. Tell me about your group fitness history and what led you up to wanting to open your own facility.
So I've been teaching Les Mills for a fair few years, like
Hmm.
nearly 15, I think. And I have been off the trainer team for nearly 4 years now. And I loved being on the training team, but I felt that I wanted to do something for me, not just for another company.
Hmm.
Because,
I
fitness is a
relate to
big,
that.
big, bad world out there. And there's lots that you can contribute that you can do when you've got your own free reign rather than someone fitting someone else's mold. So
Yep.
having the freedom to be like, well, I'd like to create this and I'd like to do that. And my partner and I were running really successful small group training in the gym that we were in. And they were just, we've always wanted to have our own place. Like before I
And
met
this is
Mark,
Origin Series
yeah,
programming, right? Yep.
yeah. So because we've run an online training business for 4 years now.
Hmm.
um, and we were doing in-personal training as well at the gym we were in. The busier the group training got, the more, because we got to a point where we're like, well, we can't take on any more people. And so we thought,
Yeah.
well, why don't we just look at getting our own space and doing small group training, but on a much larger scale. So classes throughout the day, having open gym facility. So that's what we that's what we decided to
And
do.
your style, how would you describe your style of training? I know it, but how would you describe it in your own words?
So I hate to use this word because it's just so overused, but it's just functional fitness. Like, so you'll be doing mixtures. I hate that word, but you'll be doing mixtures of barbell work, strength programming, metabolic conditioning. So we've got 5 different types of classes that you'll just go for fitness or just go for strength, maybe Olympic lifting, gymnastics, overall improvement of everything, rather than you're just going to go and train this one like modality.
And so tell me, so let's wind it back to you're doing the online training.
Yeah.
And at what point do you realize that you have the desire and the kind of willingness to take the risk to actually set up your own physical location? Like, what led you to that decision?
So when Mark and I decided to open our online business in 2016, at the end of 2016, we wanted to create a platform that we could, no matter where we were in the world, if we had an internet connection, we could work.
Yep.
And that's what we wanted. We were like, and it doesn't matter where anyone else is in the world. We wanted to do this business, and it has been really successful, and it is still our main focus. But it was the in-person stuff that Mark and I specifically missed. Like, we had people, we still have clients that I've never met. Like, they're in different parts of the world, and I do their training and their nutrition every single week, and I feel like I know them, but I've never met them. Which is amazing, but I really missed just seeing somebody and watching changes, and because our small group training business was going so well, we did discuss it, and we thought, well, why don't we just ask the current gym owner if we can have a section of his gym for just for us,
because your gym was a previous sort of underutilized squash court as part of an existing facility, is that right?
Yeah. So we said, well, why don't we ask the owner if we can have this space just as like a PT studio? When word got around that we were doing that, we went from having a small group training business of 50 to a mailing list of 400 of people wanting to.
And how did you do that? So a lot of people listening will be like, well, that's great, but how did you go about growing that audience?
So I know it sounds obvious, but it was really looking after the people that we had, for starters, and really involving them in our process and what we were doing. So I feel like a lot of not necessarily gyms. There's a couple of gyms in Bristol that do it, but everyone's always very secretive or about what they're doing, or they don't want to tell people their prices, or they don't want to say, because they think, oh, well, that competition will do it. Whereas we were completely the opposite. We were like, we're thinking of doing this. It's going to be in this sort of ballpark price wise, but this is what you're going to get for it. And so because they felt almost part of that journey, they then told other people. I put it on my own social media platform, and we spent about 3 months just pushing people to join a mailing list before they even got any information. And we got to just over 400 people, and then did a info drop, we called it, of like four big info drops of telling people what was coming up next. This was all pre-COVID though.
Did you plan out the info drops as a means of building your list, or did it just happen organically?
No.
So you planned it out. You were like, this is going to be our list building process in order to get ourselves up to the right number of clients we need before opening.
Sure. Yeah. So we'd done it so that the first one gave them gave people a really big overview of what we were going to do, and then encouraged people we put a link on that mailing list for them to send other people, because they need to tell your friends, because they're going to need to know this information if they want this. And if you're on the mailing list, then you're going to get we called it a founder membership. So they got a slightly discounted rate. But if they weren't on that mailing list, they would never get it, that sort of thing.
So this is something I just want to drill down into because I think it's a really important tool for instructors to learn, and that is the power of email. Because
Yes.
at the end of the day, social media is a great way to build your reach, but you can have your social media taken away from you at any point, or you can,
Yeah.
anything can happen where you can fall away. But if you have a really strong email list and you cultivate that membership, they're potential
Mm,
people that can buy from you, whatever you're selling. Like you can transition away from fitness into nutrition or into
sure.
something completely different. And if your
Yeah.
mailing list is engaged and people that want to hear from you, that is just money in the bank in terms of marketing. Is that
Mm.
something that how did you learn the importance of an email list?
I think that's, in fairness, come from me managing gyms in the back
Mm-hmm.
in the past. So I was a fitness manager for David Lloyd for a long time. I've
Yep.
been a coordinator for other big clubs, and there's a lot of members that just, especially when I was a gym manager, say 10 years ago, social media just wasn't what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so much. I think social media is equally as fantastic and toxic at the same time. It's
I thought
you
you get
really
no
have to,
argument from me on that.
yeah. So I think there's such a powerful tool, and it's incredible, but it's also awful for almost the same reasons.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But to have people that aren't
Amplifies
interested
the
in,
good and amplifies the bad, right?
sure, yeah, and almost if it's on social media, it's got to be true. I hate
Mm.
that. Oh well, I read it on Facebook. Oh well, oh good one. Whereas if you're on an email list, you know that that person has actively chosen to hear or read what you have to say. Using a platform like MailChimp, you get to see if people have unsubscribed or when new
Hmm.
people are coming on. So you get a real solid understanding of, are these people opening these emails? Are these people reading it? Have you had any clicks through to your website from sending this? It's not just, oh, let's stick a promotion out on Facebook and
Yeah,
hope
yeah,
for the
exactly.
best.
Well,
Because
any promotion that you do on social media should ultimately link to you capturing their
yeah.
email, right?
Yeah, of course. And it's, at least when you've got their email, you know that they want to hear from you, rather than you just flooding your social media and hoping that someone will pick up on it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that was a lesson you learned working for gyms. And is it something that you
Yeah.
put a lot of time and thought into when running your own business? How you go about keeping your email list engaged and making sure that they want to hear from you?
Yeah. So for our gym, for example, we've got a mailing list of people that have now joined, but they're also on a Facebook group for those that
Yep,
are
yep, yep, yep.
engaged in that. And then we've still got a huge list of people that we've got people that wanted to sign up, but that were working in Bristol city centre. They've been working from home since March.
Hmm.
They're not due back to the office for the foreseeable. So they're
Yep.
still interested in what we're doing. But, I've got a girl, for example, I used to train, she lives in Newport. That's another, it's in another country, really. Wales is on a
Wales.
lockdown. Yeah. So,
For the
but they're
Americans
on a
listening
different,
to this, the
yeah,
United Kingdom, those four
yeah,
countries.
yeah, yeah. And so there's people like that of course are not going to join, because they are not going to drive over an hour and a half just to have a workout.
Hmm.
Because they would have been there for work, but equally they're still opening emails, they're still reading what we have to say and still engaging in posts. So I try not to, the people that aren't members, I'm sending an email once every other month, because I
Hmm.
think too much when they're not even members is just annoying.
Yep.
But once every other month is a, hey, this is what we've got going on, and this is the results we've had from our members. And I think when you do it not so often, people can see big shifts in
Yeah.
your journey,
Particularly
rather
when
than
you
flooding
were
people
having
with
your
stuff.
journey, right? Like you were creating something big and you had lots to
Yeah.
update them on at every.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
But
So
now,
for
yeah,
for
so
the
it's,
for
yeah, it's different.
yeah, for the listeners, for instructors who are listening to this who aren't currently like across an email management system or an ability to create a list, I would say that's one thing that you really need to do. And maybe we'll do a follow-up podcast on sort of the ins and outs of creating an email list. But it's certainly I think one of the strongest ways to build your business. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people focus on social media where it's quite expensive. You don't necessarily have full control over who sees it. Whereas if you build that mailing list, that's just someone that you can hit every time that you've got something of value to offer.
Yeah, exactly. And it does take a lot longer than you think to create a really good email.
Oh yeah.
Because so like you'll do stuff and you think, and it might be because I'm maybe not as good at it, but it would take me like a good hour, maybe 2 hours to write an email that someone would go, Like,
Yeah.
I'll have a look at a few photos, bit of a clip. Oh, okay, great.
And
But
you taught yourself to do that? That was just
yeah,
something that you just had to get across the different systems when you were working in group fitness jobs and then
yeah, I
working
don't.
for yourself.
There's a lot of things that are you obviously do need help with, but things like that, like you, most of these big platforms have tools like along the way, and
Yeah.
as long as you're patient and don't get frustrated with, oh, I just can't do it, just
Yeah.
try and like and give it a go. And most of them have it. Okay, now do this. Now try this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
that's basically the theme song of my approach to everything is like just start and do it and learn
yeah.
along the way and things become a lot easier. Okay,
And
cool.
Google's your
So
best mate as well. If you don't
yeah,
know how to do
exactly. There's a
something,
YouTube
like
video for that.
how do I export a mailing list into MailChimp? And then there's someone with a step-by-step guide, and you're like, okay, well, cool, I know how to do that now.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we talked about moving from the idea to the physical location, using email to build your list so that you had a whole lot of people waiting for you to open. Then we get to opening day, and Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the UK, closes actually goes into full lockdown, right? Closes everything, along with most other countries in the world. That was the first lockdown where
Mm,
everybody went into
yeah,
lockdown, right? So
sure.
take me through the emotions. First, I want to hear how you dealt with it emotionally, and then I want to hear how you dealt with it professionally.
So it was this really a weird thing to say maybe, but because so we went into lockdown in April, so our son was nearly 4 months old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hadn't obviously I had a quite a everyone's going to say a traumatic labor. My labor was not great. It's
Yeah.
pretty awful. And so I wasn't up and mobile for a good 2 weeks to start with.
Yeah.
So and then Mark was flat out building the gym up until this point. So I'd been pretty much on my own
Yeah.
with my son. And so when I walked into the gym and it was like it had finished and it just looked incredible, and I got a bit emotional. I was so proud of Mark for working so hard and what we'd created. And then the news came on and I was torn between being gutted and just thought, thank God for that. Thank God
Because you
I
have
don't
someone at
like,
home with you.
oh, I can just have like he can just stop, because this poor guy was just so exhausted. And I
Right.
just thought, do you know what? It'll, like, naively, couple of weeks we'll be off. He can have a few
Well, that was
lie-ins.
what it
Like
was
we
going to
can
be
spend
when
time.
we first went
Yeah.
into lockdown, right? It was 3 weeks, and then we'll
Yeah.
reassess.
Yeah, and I thought, great, he can just have a rest, and we hadn't had any members sign up yet, so we weren't losing anything.
Right.
So if it was going to happen,
Other
it
than
actually
time and
happened.
opportunity cost, right?
Sure, yeah, but no one had signed up that where we had to think, oh well, they've paid all this money, now they need a service, they need something, or we have to give
Yep.
them their money back. So
Yep.
actually, I was like, well, if it's going to happen, good, let it happen now before we have people sign up. That's really good.
Yep.
Um, and then weeks passed, and I don't even know how long we were on lockdown for, like 6 years or something.
Yeah.
If you're living in a city centre flat with no garden, you are in there for 6 months. I swear, like 6 years. It was felt so long.
With a newborn.
With a newborn, my lord. Yeah, bless him. So yeah, to begin with, I was equally gutted, but equally as like, well, let's really try and think positively. You can have a
Hmm.
rest, we can recharge, we can spend more time, we can program right up till, we can program in advance, which we did end up doing a very long way in advance. So yeah, it was kind of mixed, to be honest, both gutted and grateful at the
Yeah.
same time.
So like you're in lockdown, you don't have any members yet, therefore you're not stressing about having to provide them with stuff, which I think was a big challenge for
Mm,
a lot of fitness businesses was we will let people that want to put their memberships on pause, but
yeah,
ideally we want people to keep paying us some, if not all of their membership fees, and therefore we have to
yeah.
provide them with some service. So you weren't in the position where you had to scramble to create stuff.
Well,
What
we
did you
did
do?
that for our group training business. So we were still
Okay,
doing, so our group training clients were on a direct debit and they got X
got
amount of
it.
sessions a week. But because we already had an online training business, we already
Yeah,
had a platform inbuilt into our website where people could just log on and do our sessions with us. So we
right.
weren't on this frantic,
And were they
how are we
like
going to do sessions online? sort of
yes,
thing.
you'd had that sort of. So were they like exercises that they would follow, or were they classes that you would
They were
teach
live
to the video?
sessions. Yeah, they were live
Okay, so you did
sessions.
the live
Yeah.
streaming option. What did you use?
Yeah.
Zoom?
Yeah, we used Zoom, yeah, but it was inbuilt into our website. So they kind of used their log on, they used
Yeah.
one of their credits to buy a session.
Right.
And
Ah,
yeah,
so
they kept it like that.
you had the non-physical side of your business that just kept on trucking right
Yeah,
through the lockdown.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
And
we didn't
so
not work. We did all our online programming, and then we did online sessions and all the nutrition and stuff we carried on doing. So
lockdown comes to an end. Unfortunately, we find ourselves back there now, so we won't talk about that just yet. But lockdown ends, and you finally get to opening day. Tell me a bit about that.
that was really special. It was something that obviously we'd wanted for a long time and we had waited for a long time. What I hadn't
Especially long
anticipated,
time.
yeah, what I hadn't anticipated was how difficult it was going to be to manage the social distancing, COVID
Right.
expectations. Because obviously, I'm not saying anyone else should know, because none of us have been through it before. But I'd written 8 weeks worth of programming up front, and then suddenly it dawned on me. I was like, oh well, we could fit 45 people in this room, and now with social distancing required, we can now only fit 10. Oh, okay, so that's going to cut numbers down. Oh, but now they can't share kit. Oh, okay, so I can't get partners working on something. Oh, right.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, well, now they can't, be that close to each other. So we have to move all this kit. So it was a massive steep learning curve. So what we did, like most other gyms, was kind of create sort of training bays for people to come into.
Yeah.
And
Pods
instead of a,
of
yeah,
equipment.
and instead of a big opening day, we did like 6 mini workouts on the Saturday and got people to come in and have a look around, and um, which was great. It just wasn't what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Just when we knew we had so many people that wanted to come in and we were only allowed
Right, because you had this
10 in at
massive
a
list
time.
of, hundreds of
Yeah,
people that would have come down to a massive
yeah,
big opening day and done that
yeah,
whole, like the classic type of opening day, which is,
yeah.
like
Bells and whistles
jam-packed
and
classes,
yeah,
balloons.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how did opening go? Like, what were the months that you were open? Now that we're unfortunately closed again, how did they go and how did you find them?
I can't, like, I couldn't have wanted any more. Like, our members have been
Okay.
brilliant. They are so respectful in terms of understanding what restrictions we have. They don't get too close to each other. They clean their kit all the time. They just do as they're told. They're just so grateful to have something. And I think that's
Right,
also a
because
big
that's one
difference
thing
with,
that I forget about is that people are very on board with like complying with all of the social
yeah,
distance guidelines because they want to be there so
yeah,
badly, right?
yeah,
Like we think as fitness professionals how desperately we want to be open so that we can be working and earning money.
mm,
But on the flip side of that, all of the members desperately want to be there too because it's
yeah.
such an important part of their life and their health and their fitness.
Yeah, they were just so grateful to be just to be involved in so, and we had members, it was quite emotional really. We had members that just hadn't seen another person for like all of lockdown. They
Yeah,
live on
yeah,
their
yeah.
own. They're just having this virtual interaction with people. And there was people that were genuinely just quite emotional being back and being included in something. And that for me was just like, oh, that's why we're doing it. Like that's what all this stress and like, because
Yeah.
that's pretty wonderful to be able to help people feel
That's
that
actually
way.
something that I've heard repeated by a number of people that I've spoken to is that like this year has been a shit
Yeah.
and there's been so much stress and so much sort of heartache and worry and not knowing how things are going to end up, but that it really has reminded a lot of fitness professionals who maybe got caught up in all of the other sides of trying to be, trying to make it and trying to grow a business and all that sort of stuff, like wind it back to exactly why they enjoy it. And it's that creating a good experience for someone that makes their life better.
I think that's exactly it, and it's really helping people understand A, why they're in the fitness industry, and B, just making them realize that they've already got what they need to make a difference to somebody. You don't
Mm,
need to spend huge amounts of money on a brand and this. You just need to, if whether it's choreography or invest or whatever, you just need to find something that works for you. And as long as you're you and you deliver it well, like you don't need to be caught up in anyone else's drama, like, because it
yeah.
doesn't matter, like, and no one else's drama, sorry, anyone else's drama should have no impact on you and your
Mm,
little like network of people.
yeah,
um
yeah, for sure.
and I think for me, having, especially with a baby, you end on lockdown, most people's social media usage just went through the roof because
Yeah.
like and I
Yeah,
think for
because
me,
you can't talk to anyone, right? So
I
you're just
know,
like, I
right?
really want some contact.
I think that's why I hate it even more, just because we've spent so much time. like on
Yeah,
it.
I did
And
a podcast on this with my ex-colleague from Beachbody, Danielle, where I said like I found myself sitting at home in lockdown, so desperate for contact that I was scrolling through social media just to see what other people were doing, but also realizing that scrolling through social media was making me feel worse. But
right.
caught in this loop of like, oh, I'm not seeing anybody. What can I do? Go on social media,
Yeah.
scroll, feel
And
bad.
like when you get your screen report through from Apple and it's just like, oh, I'm so offended. That is so embarrassing how high that is. But yeah, anyway, I think like instructors went one of two ways. They either went which I think is the good way of like, oh, this is actually what I've got to offer and this is why I'm doing my job. Or they got caught up in this like toxic world of like people's drama and other people's shit because they had nothing else to focus on, and they just completely lost track of what they were doing. And
Yeah,
I
I'd say
do
that's
think
fair.
2020 has like really divided the fitness world into those two camps of people.
Yeah, I get that, and I think that in the like I know that in the UK, I'm a member of a Facebook group where I went to that Facebook group hoping for support, and all I got was people complaining about other people like dobbing them in on
Yeah,
Facebook for
that's
not
a
following
no
social
from me.
distancing
Yeah,
guidelines. There was
yeah,
another brand that I'm not going to mention, but they did a video which looked fine to me. Like I'm not gonna like I wasn't there, I can't judge how they did it, but I was like, good for them getting their community out and moving,
yeah,
and
yeah,
people were like, how can they possibly be social distancing? This is terrible. And it just hurt me to my soul because I feel that like we should just support each other. It doesn't matter what
yeah.
brand you work for, what gym you work for. There is so much opportunity in the fitness industry to reach new people that we don't need to be scrapping over
Sure.
what we've got currently. We should just look to build.
I think what I found most difficult about that kind of dobbing in, complaining thing, especially from fitness professionals who are meant to understand that, you got no idea what that fitness professional, like, so I know, for example, there was a gym in Bristol that remained open in lockdown. There was actually two. They stayed open, one of which definitely financially didn't need to. They just did what they wanted. And the
Yeah.
other one, I know, financially, this guy would have not had a house to live in or feed
Yeah.
his
Yeah. Yeah.
children. Fuck, like just let the guy train some people. Like it is, if it's not your responsibility to get involved with that person, like just let
Yep.
them do it. It's, I think 2020 is meant, it's just this, especially COVID, is this like, just be nicer to people. There's obviously dickheads in the world, but there's some people that like really like just are doing everything possible because they're desperate to like
Yeah,
make
I
everything
agree with you.
better.
If someone's just doing their best and they're trying their hardest and like
Especially
maybe
those
just
keeping their head down, like just doing it,
yeah,
not
for
shouting
sure.
about it, just getting on with it, just like just do it.
Okay, so you mentioned your new baby, who is how old
Yeah.
now?
He's 10 months
10 months
old.
old. Okay, so take me back to because I found out about this after I knew about the opening of the facility. Had you planned to open Origin? What's it called? Origin series?
Origin Athletic.
Origin series is
Yeah,
your
so
program.
Origin, yeah, that's right.
Yep. Then the gym in Bristol is Origin Athletic, which
Yeah.
anyone can come and visit once we're opening it.
Yeah. Socially
So
distant, you can come in.
So you plan to open Origin Athletic and then wind it back. Like, at what stage of we're going to open a gym did you find out that you were pregnant?
uh we we had decided we were going to open a gym, and then I had been speaking to you about us opening the
Yep.
gym.
Yeah.
And so I found out I was pregnant in the April, and it was due to open in the November, December. So relatively
And what was your due date?
the 7th of January.
So when you found out you were pregnant, it was pretty much exactly at the time that your original open date
That's
was.
correct. Yes, that's
And
right.
was this a complete surprise, or was it sort of something that you've been planning and it just
The
happened
gym
to
or the baby?
coincide? Both. Both.
both both were planned.
Both were planned.
Yeah. Maybe it's a
Maybe not
podcast for
planned to
another
be
day.
so contemporaneous,
No,
but
no. So originally, I'll tell you, and maybe deeper story for another day, but
yeah.
I had uh got pregnant, and I actually lost my pregnancy.
Okay.
I had an ectopic pregnancy, so I needed surgery, and that was in the February.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mark and I were really keen to for me to get pregnant again. And
Yep.
so the original plan was, if that pregnancy had like
Yep.
made it through, that I would have had the baby, and the baby would have been 3 or 4 months old, and then we would have opened the gym.
Oh, and 3 or 4 month old is totally fine.
Yeah, but it's better than a 4-day-old, Will.
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
So yeah, but it didn't quite work out that way. But at the time, Will, I just didn't care. I was like, well, we'll be all right. And
Yeah, for sure.
it'll
I
be
mean, life
fine.
comes at you, right? And you just roll with it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And
So yeah,
so,
it ended up being pretty much within 6 weeks of each other, basically.
yeah. So this is the bit that I'm interested to talk to you about, because for those people who know Kate from her time in the UK industry or Les Mills, you would know that she has extremely high tuck jumps, not quite as high as mine, but very high.
Definitely not anymore, mate. I've got any anymore.
So you were a body pumper, body attacker, grit. You were very known for being extremely strong, extremely explosive, extremely fit, doing all the jumping sort of stuff. So I assume that your particular style of fitness and your kind of place within the fitness industry is one which is very, and I'm not suggesting that being pregnant doesn't change how everybody approaches their fitness, but I imagine that it forced you to have a think about how you were going to approach the types of things you taught, like during pregnancy and then after. Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm sure it's something that a lot of people listening can relate to. Either they're thinking about having kids or they've had kids and they understand what you went through.
I think what I hadn't, again, because it's your first one and you have no idea, what I hadn't understood was that I knew that women get a bit morning sick at the beginning and then you're uncomfortable at the end. And I had it in my mind, I was going to be this like super fit, super awesome, active, pregnant girl. I was just going to be rocking life. Well, that was not it at all. My pregnancy was so bad. So I had a condition where I was sick every day, as in physically sick every single day for 9 months.
God.
I had every symptom going. I had horrendous sciatica, and I basically just couldn't do very much at all for the whole 9 months. I taught maybe 5 classes in 9 months.
Really? Okay, so your pregnancy pretty much took you out of the physical side of teaching group fitness right from the start.
Yeah, I couldn't have a microphone on my face for more than 10 minutes without needing to be sick. So teaching a class was just not an option. So, and 3 of those classes out of the 5 that I taught were I was 8 months pregnant, where I was
finally got over the morning sickness towards the end.
You know what I mean? I was sort of all right by then. And I think I had completely not understood how much energy it takes to grow a human. And I know that there's lots of active women that have babies and they're great, and lots of people that just train and they but because training was my life, not only did I teach 25, 30 classes a week, I would then go to CrossFit. Yeah,
I knew you were mad, but
I did like 7. I did 7 every Tuesday, 8 every Wednesday. Like, it was just what I did, and I loved it. And looking back, I'm like, you're an actual psychotic woman. How did you ever do that? Because I couldn't do 8 in a week now, probably. And I would train on top of that. So going from that to literally not being able to do that was more than challenging. Not for my body. I think my body appreciated the rest. My poor little heart, my head. I had a bit of a tough time, to be honest. But
in terms of and so tell me about that. Like, was it tough because you enjoyed the like you missed the endorphins of working out, or tough because because if I think about when I'm not able to work out, I always go back to like my crux, which I've managed to, as I've got older, work away from, but I'm always like, if I don't work out, I'll get fat. I was a fat kid, a fat teenager. So that's like the thing in my mind. I think I'm at the point now where I don't do that anymore, but it's taken me up until sort of 40. What was the thinking going through your head when you couldn't work out? Like, why was it taking you through the emotions?
It for me. I love training. I love sweating, and I love that feeling when you're in the middle of a workout and you're super out of breath, and you go get in, have a great shower, and you think, oh, I'm set for the day. And because I was just never doing that, I missed it. And
do you think you were addicted to fitness? Would you like?
Yeah,
It's a good.
yeah,
I think fitness is something you can be addicted to in a good way, but in terms
yes, I
of
was.
something, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. If my and if my body wasn't, my head definitely was.
Yeah. For sure.
I would get incredibly, not outwardly to other people, but I'd be really irritable, wouldn't sleep as well. I'd just get a bit of anxiety if I hadn't. I just have this like desire to do burpees. Do you know what I mean? No, just to
Yeah.
do something. Like
I have to say I completely understand where you're coming from, because I think that is a condition that I would have also had up until lockdown. I found this lockdown where particularly the first one, like I'm all about home workouts. Home workouts till the cows come home. I'm very big on making sure instructors feel that they can deliver from their home. But at the end of the day, I got a bit bored of doing home workouts every day, and
mm,
so I just got
mm,
to the point where I started walking. And then I was using my calorie tracker on my iPhone and realizing that I was burning more calories doing a really long walk than I
right.
was necessarily doing a half-hour bodyweight workout. And
Yeah.
that was a realization that, like, I think was quite useful to me, because the long walk would be good for my body, good for my brain, allow me a little bit of thinking. And it also kind of got me away from that whole, if you haven't done a half an hour at least of exercise, preferably high
Yeah.
intensity, because that's what will get the, endorphins going, then you haven't done enough today.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the fresh air thing as well, just being outside, I think makes a difference, especially when you live in like the rainy country of England. So getting some fresh air and some sun is lovely. Um, but yeah, so I did really struggle, and also because I'd had a number of hip surgeries before I got pregnant as well.
Right. Yeah.
So my training hadn't been back to how it was since that. Um, and I was never like bothered with how I looked, because I'd always been a really active person. I'd always worked hard and been lucky
Hmm.
enough not to be too injured. But I remember like when I was pregnant and I hadn't got a big bump yet, I had a little
Yep.
bump. I remember looking in the mirror, and much of my size had gone, as in like my legs had changed shape and my shoulders had changed
Yeah.
shape. And I was so sad. I was like, oh, I was so upset. I was like, I've worked so hard just to feel really confident in how I look, and now
Hmm.
I don't. And um, I get that people say stuff and they might have great intentions, but when I would see people and they tell me that I was skinny or little, and I'm like, and I
Thinking that
know
that was what
that's,
you wanted to
and
hear, right?
I know some people love that, but I'm like, oh, but that isn't what
All of
I
that work,
want.
decades of lifting,
I
all my
want to.
gains.
Where's my legs gone? So I was a bit sad that yeah, that things had changed. But also at the same time, I had felt so poorly that I thought, you know what, you just need to get over this, because
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you're growing a
Okay,
person.
so and then you gave birth, and tell us about the journey back into fitness after that. So what's your son's name? Caden.
Kobe.
Kobe.
Yeah. So because of how um I had an emergency section.
Mm-hmm.
So Kobe stopped breathing in labor and they had to get him out super quick. And the surgery was quite rough. So they give a sort of 12-week window to going back to fitness.
Yep.
It was still hurting me to sneeze at 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So I definitely didn't do anything before then. So it was about 15 weeks that I did some light cycling, and
Mm-hmm.
then we were in lockdown by then. So I started doing on demand body pump with, like
Yep.
half a kilo or something depressing on the
Just the
bar.
bar.
Oh my God, awful. Yeah. And I'd also written a postnatal back to training
Mm-hmm.
program for a group of girls that I know wanted it, and it went on sale on our website. And so just me doing that highlighted just how terrible my core was and how much damage there had been. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, do you know what? If I'm honest, since then, I haven't really got back into training. Not because I don't want to,
Yep.
but because Mark works at the gym from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. and my little person is difficult to. I can't just train whenever I want.
Yep.
But so instead of getting super sad about it and thinking, which I have done,
Mm-hmm.
thinking I'm not going to doing anything, this is really rubbish. I've kind of understood that he's only little once.
Yep.
If I just need to almost just write it off and just be like, well, you've chosen to be a mum, so be a mum. your training will come back like when he's older. Don't push him off on somebody, or hope that he sleeps longer just so you can train, or like plead with a friend just to watch him whilst you, because I'm not into just doing a little bit to make myself feel better. I like structure in my training. I like to know that I'm
Right. If
going to train.
you're going and you're doing
Yeah.
muscle ups. And
Yeah. 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 But if I'm training, I want to do it like 3 or 4 times a week to really like feel like I've got a structure. Because I did just do a couple of sessions, and then I was so sore, I literally legit couldn't hardly pick up my child for 2 weeks. I was so bad. So I was like, instead of just doing that, I'm just gonna wait until he's a little bit older. He'll go to nursery, and then I'm gonna train, and it will
And
come back,
so
and I'll feel a lot
what do
more
you do
positive about it.
what do you do for like exercise and stuff? Do you go for walks or?
Yeah, walk loads. I
Yeah.
do walk loads, and I do. So I coach at our gym on a
Mhm.
Friday. So I do, and I teach attack and pump on a Friday. So I am doing
So you're
stuff.
not doing nothing,
Yeah,
Kate.
but for me, I'm doing nothing.
I really haven't done anything except a double attack and pump on a Friday.
Yeah, but that is for me. That's
Everybody
not a
listening's
lot.
like, oh, okay.
But for me, it's not a lot. But like Monday to Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday, I do very little.
Mhm.
In terms of exercise. But yeah, so I'm just trying to be like, I'm just trying to be cool with it.
Right. And so
It's
how
a
would
work
you
in progress.
yeah, how would you say your relationship with fitness has changed in the last year? Like if you could sum it up, like where do you feel you're at now at the start of the journey to where you are now?
How do you mean in terms of like,
Your like how do you view fitness now versus how you viewed it before? Has it changed or are you just ready to get back to it when you can?
I've probably got a healthier relationship with fitness now
Hmm.
than I did before. Because before I was injured, I would do
Injured but still
way
training.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Way too much training, didn't listen to my body at all. But it was also like, without going into it too much, I was also really unhappy when I was training that much. Like
Hmm.
it was the one thing that I could go to. And I knew if I was at CrossFit or I was teaching attack, I didn't think about anything in that
Yeah.
time. And so that's why I did it all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because that was the thing that made me happy. And then when you're busy training, you don't think about
Yeah.
anything
Yeah. Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
So now I really appreciate that. Oh, my body's been through a lot, and this is what it can do, but this is what it can't. But be okay with the fact that you can't do that.
Yeah.
Whereas I never used to be okay that I couldn't do. So I was like, well, why not? Why can't I do that? I will train harder or push myself harder until I can do it. And now I'm just like, well, I don't need to do that. I'll just train
It's
and do the movements that don't hurt me and the movements
yeah.
that I really enjoy. I'm not going to the CrossFit Games. I'm not going to the Olympics. I never was. So why do that to yourself? Just
Yeah.
do the
It's
movements
funny.
you love doing.
I had that so like obviously a different situation. I didn't go through having a baby, obviously, but when I put my back out for the first
Oh,
time
I remember.
and I couldn't walk for like
Mm,
6 weeks, it was actually a really good learning curve for me because I had been kind of at the professional fitness professional, high level, doing all the impact stuff, lifting heavy for I don't know 15, 16 years. And
yeah.
then I hurt my back and I could barely walk for 6 weeks. And then I had to kind of rehabilitate myself. But as a teacher, it taught me so much more than I'd learned in those previous 15 years
Mm,
because I never really understood why people needed to modify. And I
sure.
never really understood how hard it was for someone who wasn't fit to come into one of my classes and do like a plyometric jump or a plyometric
Sure.
lunge. Like I didn't really understand. And when I hurt my back and I had to kind of build my fitness back up, I started to realize, oh, this stuff is hard. Like if you
Yeah.
haven't done this for a while, or if this doesn't come naturally to you, it's really tough. And it gave me
Mm,
so much more humility and grace and
sure.
understanding of what the people in my classes are like. Because I think up till that point, because it had always come so easily to me, I didn't
Yeah.
really appreciate
Definitely.
it.
Yeah, so I had I did like I had this little clip of a video of me doing push-ups in lockdown, and then versus push-ups, whatever it was, 3 months later. And I remember the first time I tried to do a push-up post-pregnancy, and because I've never, like you, I'd never really struggled with push-ups. I was just like,
Mm.
why can't you do that? Push yourself up off the floor. Like,
Yes.
well, it's like, just get up, push harder off the floor, and you'll be fine. And I would go down, and I was like, I cannot do that. That's
Mm.
really difficult with my knees down and everything. And I couldn't even do one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's good for it's not great for coaches to be injured, but God, it's so good for coaches to get a bit of a reality check and be like, this
Yeah.
is
To
hard.
understand what their clients actually
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I think that kind of brings us to a nice closing point. Now I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you two things.
Go
One
on.
is, what is the biggest thing you've learned from opening your own gym that you would pass on to prospective fitness instructors who are thinking about taking that step? And then the same thing for having your first child. You can choose to take them in the order you wish. Sweet.
So I'll do the gym first, I think.
Okay.
So the gym one is to not try and assume that you know it or just go in blind. Like, speak to other people that have done it, because there'll be
Mhm.
people that have made all the mistakes in
Yeah.
terms of building a website, learning about different types of tax you have to pay, data protection things you have to know about, all these things that you just think, oh, I'll just open a gym and run some and coach some classes.
Yeah.
My advice would be to speak to as many other gym owners as possible, especially gyms
Hmm.
that you respect and you think, oh, I love how they do that.
Yep.
And if they're lovely owners, they will be equally as happy to share some tips of wisdom with you. Yeah,
Yep.
don't go
Yeah.
it alone. Speak to other people.
Good advice.
What was the other one about the baby?
Yeah.
What advice about having a baby?
Yeah. What advice would you give to a fitness instructor who's thinking about having, like, is sort of planning their first baby? What would be your piece of advice, having just gone through that and as a fitness professional who's been in the industry for a long time?
Okay, so this is the easiest one to say, and it's still the thing that I didn't do for a long time and still really bad at, is be kind to yourself. And
Hmm.
whilst your baby will change your world and they will always be first because they just need you, if you are empty, you can give nothing.
Hmm.
So you have to just be okay that you haven't done the washing up, or you haven't washed your hair in 2 weeks, or you haven't, just be all right with it,
Yeah.
because you can't be as organized and as on everything as you used to be. And if you're a very organized, on it person that suddenly isn't, that is really hard. But you just
Yeah.
have to be all right with it and know that it, like, none of those things matter, and that your baby loves you because they don't know what mess is. They just want
Exactly.
they just want you. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Kate. I have to
Oh,
say,
thanks
having
for
known you
having
for a
me.
long time and knowing what a driven and motivated and sort of type A personality you are, I am very, very proud of all of the development and changes that have gone through your life, and especially in,
Thank
the
you.
last year. But opening your own gym, having a baby, being okay with not training, all these things, I just have to say, I'm very proud of you, and I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to see what happens with Origin Athletic as you're finally able to open up and build out Bristol as a fitness mecca.
Yeah, that's the plan, mate. That is the plan. We just need to get people back in and get people comfortable being there. And I've got every confidence it's going to be really incredible and really special place to be.
Awesome. And we'll put links to that so that everyone can check out your
Thank
gym
you.
in the show notes. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much, Kate.
much. Thanks, Will.